It's a late summer sim racing showdown just north of Chicago, Illinois. Sim Racing Chicago, a premier sim racing facility, is hosting another major tournament event. This time inviting those from around the country to participate for cash prizes. This time, though, this virtual event isn't hosted at the nearby Road America. It's in virtual upstate New York at the famous Watkins Glen International, a track known for being as fast as it is unforgiving. Welcome to Sim Racing Chicago, welcome to Watkins Glen, and welcome to another iRacing tournament that is sure to put on a show. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Heyer, joining you on location from Sim Racing Chicago. This facility is absolutely gorgeous. If you have not been here, you should make it a point to come see it. About a dozen sim rigs, many with motion, set up to go racing virtually here this afternoon. Qualifying is underway. There are two races this afternoon, a B race and an A race, all of which will be live streamed here on location as we get set for these two 20-minute races. We're racing GT3 machines at Watkins Glen International, and I mentioned this is a state-of-the-art facility. It's about 3.25 miles up in upstate New York, and it all starts with a run down to turn number 1. They call that the 90. That is a very high-speed right-hander at the downhill end of the front straightaway, up the S's, right between the guardrails, all the way to the inner loop at the end of the back straightaway. That is a passing opportunity, but you have to sling the car over the curbs through their big, tall rumble strips, keeping you from cutting the track too much. Then a run through the outer loop, a downhill right-hander. That's turn number 5 into turn 6, the downhill left. This, I think, is the most challenging corner on this racetrack. It will challenge drivers all day long to get the braking right, get the line right, and maybe make an overtake. Then it's down into turn 7, the toe of the boot, into the heel at the bottom end of the racetrack there, uphill, and then off camber, turn 9. That will be a challenge as well as the track flattens back out to rejoin the NASCAR short course. Turn 10 at 11, the final two corners, a fast left-hander at 10, fast right-hander at 11. Watch out for the wall on corner exit. It will be a place that drivers will impact if they get it all wrong. Down into qualifying now, and on the left-hand side of the screen, the timing and scoring tower will alert you to who is where as far as running positions. Of course, the names and numbers correspond to drivers that are here on site, so 8, 9, 7, 6, and so on and so forth. Those are drivers that are physically here on site with us. One of them, sim number 2, driven by Dimitri Pisios, who's one of the faculty here at Sim Racing Chicago, and his goal was to make it into the big show, the A race. Missed it by 1/10 of a second, but here he is in the white and red Porsche 911 GT3R. Again, we're running in GT3 machinery, cars that make just about 450 horsepower and have loads of downforce and can complete a lap around here in about 1 minute and 43 seconds or so at full tilt. We're going to see just shy of that, I think, in this session, but maybe in the next one it's going to get a little bit quicker. Two races split by their qualifying times. One was mostly full with the drivers that are joining us from home. This one is mostly drivers that are joining us here in the studio here at Sim Racing Chicago. So there's Dimitri Pisios in that number 2 car. The number 1 machine, that is Bill Witowski, the owner and operator here at Sim Racing Chicago. You see the livery, the blue and gold colors on his Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo as he accelerates out of the toe of the boot into the heel. We'll ride on board with him here as he dives into the heel of the boot, heads up the hill once again. This racetrack, Watkins Glen International, known internationally for being one of the fastest road courses in North America. And there's a couple key places that we pointed out already. The 90, that's turn number 1. You see it here. Leads you up into the S's where the guardrails close in. And they do close in. You'll be doing about $150 heading up the hill here, 140, 150 miles an hour, and then the run into the bus stop. Those big yellow and red rumble strips will keep you from getting too greedy. You have to sling the car through there to make speed as quickly as possible. The carousel we mentioned, this downhill right-hander. You see the Ferrari working its way through right now. Then into the boot section, added in 1971 to extend the course about a mile. Then into the toe. Again, this is a huge elevation change from very downhill to very uphill all at once. And a pickup for Christian Sverk in the number 4 machine. There he is in the number 4 Porsche heading up the hill. The Porsches so far have been the cars to beat. As far as I can tell, they've been rock solid in practices and the qualifying so far. And again, the GT3R 992 generation GT3, new to iRacing, new to the real world of racing as well. And watch this bus stop here, slamming over the curbs. You have to carry so much speed. Make a huge portion of your lap time through that section. Thanks for joining us from around the world and from around the Chicago area. Again, I'm Kyle Heyer, joining you live from Sim Racing Chicago. And again, sights and sounds from the facility here, kind of bathed in purple light. It is a really neat facility to hang out in. See the live stream up on the top there. Time remaining in the session, just underneath that Saybelt logo there in the middle of the screen. And one driver is joining us from his home sim. That's Byron Hayes in the number 3 McLaren. Now, we don't see a whole lot of the McLarens anymore. This is an MP412C, so it's a slightly older generation McLaren model. But known for shooting flames out the tailpipes, and you're going to see that again as he accelerates down towards the toe of the boot. Watch the flames out of the tailpipes right there as he gets off throttle. You could cook a marshmallow or 3 on the back of this thing. But currently 6th is Byron Hayes. Looks like he's not on a flyer right now. Other drivers that are joining us here in sight. Part number 9. It's Elvis joining us in this tan and beige Porsche 911 GT3R. He accelerates out of pit lane. It's the Fred Flintstone's Porsche 911 GT3. Love the livery on this car as he climbs up the hill. Arthur is in the number 6. There he is in another orange Porsche 911. And up through the S's here. Again, one of the fastest sections in North American road racing. Right on board over the shoulder here of Arthur as we head down into the bus stop. Again, watch the curbing here on the right. Car's going to pop up on the right side, then on the left, then on the left, then on the right. It's such a rhythmic section that carries speed. You have to be aggressive on those rumble strips, and the Porsche has been the best at that so far today. In sim number 10, it's Thomas Martinez. There he is in the Mercedes-AMG GT3. I guess it's just the Mercedes-AMG GT3, the Evo generation model, the newer of the 2 Mercedes-AMGs. Front mid-engine and a naturally aspirated 6.2-liter V8 under the hood of this car. It makes great noises. Down to the heel of the boot there. A nice acceleration off and then into one of the trickier portions of the racetrack. This is turn number 9 where it rejoins the short course that NASCAR uses when they visit this facility. They'll be there next week in the real world. But this week we're in Sim Racing Chicago running the virtual Watkins Glen International. And there's Thomas Martinez working his way around the final corner here and getting really close to this wall. You have to get up onto the rumble strips to maximize the distance. But still Camille on top in the number 1 car. It's sim number 8, Sam Robbins behind the wheel of the 2nd place Porsches. There's some cars strewn about in the S's on the uphill. Here is Sam Robbins slowing down now for that inner loop. Another Porsche 911 GT3R. This has been the popular choice. The new car to iRacing, again, new to the real world, but exceptionally well balanced with an engine in the rear. Not a lot of weight on the nose of this car, so it can push, but it trends to a bit more stability than it does to rotation, like something like the Mercedes-AMG would. Really tight out of turn 6 for Sam Robbins. Breaks his way by Camille, who's slowing down there on the toe to the boot. So just 3 minutes remain here in qualifying. This will set our running order for the first of our 2 races here today. And on the brakes again for the heel. Other drivers joining us again. We haven't mentioned Ramiro Trejo yet in the number 7 rig. Here he is alone in the Ferrari 488 Evo. This is a mid-engined turbocharged V8 car and probably one of the most beautiful GT3 cars ever designed, only surpassed maybe by the newer generation Ferrari 296 that has replaced it in GT3 competition. Nice line there, though, for Ramiro through the inner loop. He accelerates now down towards turn number 6. The track falls away from you here. It's really easy to get this wrong. I mentioned earlier that it's probably one of the trickier corners on the racetrack because it's deceiving. As the track falls away from you, you don't have the mechanical grip on the car. As you're braking, you lose the aerodynamic grip. SRC3, again, we mentioned Sim 3 is Eric Pilipchuk behind the wheel of this famous livery, the T-Rex Porsche. Seen this car in person. It is as striking in person as it is in the sim. Looks like Eric will come across the stripe at a 1:46.735, but it was not a valid lap. One of the key parts about running at Watkins Glen International, you see it there, outside track limits will invalidate your qualifying lap. You have to keep it in bounds. The only exception corner where you can run out of bounds and not get yourself a penalty is the exit of the heel of the boot. So down the hill there, all that paved runoff, that's fair game. But everywhere else, you have to keep the car in the lines or touching the yellow and red rumble strip. So on pole right now, it's Camille by about 1/10.5 of a second over Sim 8. That's Sam Robbins behind the wheel, as we mentioned before. There he is as he climbs up towards the top of the boot and rejoins the full course here and then heads towards turn number 10. And let's listen to see if he lifts. It's going to be just the slightest of lifts here through turn 10. Just a confidence lift to get the thing rotated in and then right back on throttle into turn 11 now, and then right up to the outside wall past the camera mounted on the safer barrier and to the stripe. Is it going to be a pickup for the number 8 of Sam Robbins? It will not be. A best time of a 1:45.692. Still about 1/10 of a second behind Camille in the number 1 Lamborghini as he lets some traffic go by. So qualifying almost complete, just 19 seconds remain. And looks like Sim 10, Thomas Martinez, finally gets a time on the board at a 1:47.7. But he'll need to do a little bit better than that. 38 thousandths of a second off of Sim number 3, piloted by Eric Pilipchuk. Now headed towards the inner loop once again. The speed at which you enter this, you're entering at well over 170 miles an hour. Then you're on the brakes using the downforce to turn in. And the car is slamming over the rumble strips and just unsettling the chassis as it bounces over. Something that every driver will have to manage, but checkered flag is out here in qualifying. Drivers that are on a flying lap can complete it. Again, looks like green sectors for car number 8, Sam Robbins. If he can stay in the positive here, he might be able to dethrone Camille off pole position for this race through turn 9. Qualifying is the best time attack session that you could ask for. It's just so thrilling in the closing moments to see if anybody will best the number 8. Or the number 1, rather, through turn 11. Didn't quite get as far left as he needed to carry maximum speed there. And I think he might have scrubbed the wall out of the final turn, which would invalidate that lap. So checkered flag waves, and it is not going to be an improvement for Sam Robbins. We stay where we are as far as qualifying positions for now. Track temps are reasonably warm, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But I'd expect to see a little bit quicker lap times once we start getting into the race sessions and have some draft to contend with as well. But drivers completing their qualifying efforts. And here's a look on the left-hand side of your screen, but also let's have a look at our session results here. Sim Rig 1, that's Camille on top. And it is the only driver from home, Byron Hayes, who's in that blank position, number 8 in the McLaren MP4 12C GT3. Time spread of about 2 seconds here in qualifying, which is actually fairly close across an 11-driver field. And in just 30 seconds, we will go racing from Watkins Glen. Well, what good is a motorsports event without a flyover celebrating all things at a racetrack? Here we go. Little FA-18 Hornet over the top of the field. Wish we had the national anthem going, but across the Front straightaway goes the F-18. We'll get ready to go racing here from Watkins Glen International. Just on the southern tip of Seneca Lake in upstate New York. There's a look at the lake. One of the deepest Finger Lakes. It's about an hour and a half away from Rochester. About an hour and a half away from Syracuse, New York. But it has been a track synonymous with North American road racing. Time to get gridded up and go racing here from Watkins Glen. And here is that grid getting set to go racing. And the field is majority Porsche. That's been the car of choice here so far today. And thanks for joining us here on location from Sim Racing Chicago. Here's a look at it. Again, if you have not seen this facility in person, you need to make a point to go. It is absolutely gorgeous and fit for events just like this. As cars begin to roll off, drivers are settling down. Everyone got to the grid just in time, and we are going to follow the safety car for one lap before we go green. Warm up those tires, warm up the brakes. As far as the car selection here, all are Porsches with 3 exceptions. One, the leader, the pole sitter, Camille, in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. Got a Mercedes AMG GT3 towards the tail of the field here. That is Thomas Martinez behind the wheel. And the only other exception is car number 7. That is Ramiro Trejo in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. Other than that, it is a Porsche field. Oh, I lied. Byron Hayes again in the McLaren MP4 12C. How could we forget about the fire-breathing dragon that is that McLaren, our 4th non-Porsche. So 6 of the 11. Check that. 7 of the 11 are Porsches. The other 4 alternative manufacturers. Warming up their tires, warming up their brakes, getting ready to go racing. It is a 20-minute race, which is about 12 laps here at Watkins Glen. Drivers getting set to go here. Here's a look at them through the outer loop. Turn 5. And once again, let's go through your qualifying order. On the front row in the number 1 Lamborghini, it is Kamil Witowski behind the wheel. Alongside him in the number 8 is Sam Robbins in that green and black Porsche. Row 2, it's car number 2, Dimitri Dicios behind the wheel. And alongside Christian Sverk in the number 4 Porsche. Row 3, it's car number 7, Ramiro Trejo alongside car 6, Arthur Preitka behind the wheel. Row 4, it's sim number 9, Elvis Roostens behind the wheel. And then it's Byron Hayes, our one and only driver competing from home in the number 3 McLaren. Row 5, it's car 5, Patrick Kowalski. And then it is sim number 3, Eric Pilipchik, followed by Thomas Martinez. That is your starting lineup here for this first of the races here this afternoon, this Sim Racing Chicago special event. Thanks for joining us, whether you're here in person or whether you're at home watching. And for those that are racing up next, maybe there's some things to learn about the track, about the racing, about the racers. Up the hill and rejoining the NASCAR short course, that Porsche safety car is going to peel off here in just a moment and leave the field in the hands of Camille in the Lamborghini. The naturally aspirated V10 is going to come to life. And it is the calm before the storm here on a blue sky day at Watkins Glen International. Thanks for joining us one more time. Here they come. Through turn number 11. It is time to go racing from Watkins Glen, from Sim Racing Chicago. Here we go, the tournament about to get underway, waiting for that green flag to fly, and there it goes. Green flag flies, and we're racing in Sim Racing Chicago. It is a frantic start. Everybody 3 wide on the run down to the first corner. Look out, big dives, and there's contact, and the 7 car gets turned around and into the wall, and with them the 4 goes as well. That is Christian and Ramiro. They are involved, but they head up to turn 2. The rest of the field gets away clean. So big dramas on the opening moments here. We'll check back in on a replay of that in a little while. But for the top spot, it's now the 8 car that settles into second. Sam Robbins, who started on the outside of the front row, has a look here on the 1 of Camille into the bus stop. Late breaker for the 1, but he's in too deep. He's in way too deep over the curbs, and that'll be a slowdown penalty he'll have to serve. Where can Sam Robbins find a way around? He's going to have to go to the inside here as they sweep through the outer loop. And here comes... wow, that's the number 3 machine, Eric Pilipchuk, into the mix. Big dive on the outside as Dimitri Pisios watches on at his white Porsche. It's a frantic scrap up front here for the lead. Here comes car number 8. Sam Robbins takes the lead away from Kamil Witowski, who's serving that penalty. And then Eric Pilipchuk in the Tyrannosaurus Rex Porsche right in front of Camille, slots in head in the Porsche. Camille's got that penalty served. Big dive, and there's a little bit of contact, maybe crossover, and Camille's through back to second. Pisios watches on in the number 2, and just behind, it's sim number 9, Elvis Rusens. That's that tan Fred Flintstone's Porsche. He's got Dimitri to the inside here through turn 10. Dimitri has to shallow up the line. Drops the tires on the curbing, but gets away nice and clean. Lap 1 is complete. The only major dramas were those on the initial start. Lap 1 complete. Sam Robbins leads the way down into the first corner. Camille tries to run him back down. That is a great battle for the top spot. And in behind him, 6 and 5 going at it. That is Patrick Kowalski in the 5, and Arthur Peitka in the 6. And through comes Byron Hayes, the driver from at home, up the inside of the number 6 machine, tries to slide his McLaren in, and he's sideways and in the wall. And just like that, Byron Hayes has found some damage on his McLaren MP4 12C. And for the lead, once again, Camille hounding the back of Sam as they work their way through the outer loop. Shallower line for Camille on corner exit. That will allow Robbins to pull away slightly, and Dimitri Pisios has had a problem. Let's have a look at it. Just got on the rumble strips there and just got a little bit wrong. That one's going to sting a bit, I think, for Dimitri. He's back to position number 10 as we jump back to the lead battle. Sam Robbins and the 1 of Camille, they lead Porsche, Lamborghini, Porsche, your top 3, green, black, green, followed by the tan Porsche, sim number 9 here on site, Elvis Rusens. They head back up to complete another lap here. There's a great look at the on-site action here at Sim Racing Chicago. All but one of the drivers in this race are physically on location and on the motion rigs that give you that exceptional driver feedback. And trouble for the 7 again, Ramiro Trejo. Big impact in the wall at the exit of turn 11. And right back across the track in front of Byron Hayes. And fortunately, it will continue to go wrong. Have a look at what happened. Ooh, there was contact there from Christian in the 4. Sent the Ferrari up around. He almost had it saved and then came back across the road and into the Armco barrier. Great lead battle up front. 3/10 separate them. Camille working that gap back down right over the shoulder here. All about being precise here. If you get a foot wrong, or you get your footwork wrong on the braking into some of these corners, just like the 8 did there slightly on exit, and you overcommit, it is such a penalizing racetrack. You step out of bounds here. There are places that will catch you. There are places where there's pavement if you run wide, but especially in the S's or down here in the boot, there is just not a lot of room for error. The race continues here with 15 minutes to go. And the lead battle is still on, and more trouble for Pisios in the number 2. He's in the grass down there at the toe of the boot, and through goes the 7 of Ramiro, who's on a bit of a recovery drive after an incident himself. And back to 6th place. This is Arthur Peitka and the 4 of Christian Sverk. And just behind that, Patrick Kowalski. Let's ride on board with Patrick as he closes in on this battle for 6th place. Excellent run out of turn 11. Going to have a look here at Christian. Looks to the inside. Christian leaves the door open so far. Nice fair racing up until this point. Big dive on the brakes though for the 4. And leaving turn 1, a good launch. That's a critical corner to get right. You're on throttle here for a long time in a GT3 car. Leaving turn 1. The top spot though still remains very, very tight. These two, slide, the 1 out of control and into the wall hard at the exit of the bus stop. The driver that was on pole and was chasing in 2nd place has found his way into the wall and in a big, big way. He's going to lose 3 more spots to that battle for 6th I mentioned earlier. But here is what happened. Duke Camille just gets up on the curbs. First one was all right, but the second one got the car unsettled and then slams into the tire bundles there. That was a big hit. That will be a costly mistake. And and the tires are now really hot. The Pirelli's potentially overheated. Through goes the 3 of Byron Hayes, who's going to tag the 1 as well and gets clobbered by the 2 of Dimitri as well. So that just goes from bad to worse all in 1 lap. How quickly things can change at a track as fast as Watkins Glen. The 8 leads the way though. It is Sam Robbins behind the wheel. And in 2nd place now, it's sim number 3, Eric, who started a bit deeper in this field, 10th place, 2nd to last, and has made this car work to his favor. He's now up into 2nd place, and then into 4th. Look at who we've got here. This is sim 10, Thomas Martinez, who also started towards the tail of the field, dead last in this Mercedes AMG, and has put it to work. Good solid run here for Thomas Martinez. Goes 4.8 seconds, the gap to the lead from sim 3 up to sim 8. As we approach the halfway point of this race, 12 minutes to go. Little wobble there over the rumble strips for the number 10, and things are getting a little bit spicy and dicey behind him for 5th place. Sim 6, Arthur and Christian going at it here, and throw in as well Patrick Kowalski. Good little scrum here, and is there going to be some contact? Yes, some argy-bargy, some side-by-side. Move Christian up 1 and move the 6 of Arthur back 1. All things that Patrick just saw out the windshield. Big dive there into the toe of the boot for Arthur. Tried to regain that position on Christian, who took it from him with force down at turn number 6. This battle continues to be the closest one on the racetrack. It rages on for what is going to cycle to be 5th place. Out up front, though, it is the green number 8 Porsche that leads the way, and leads with conviction, 5.6 seconds, and there was trouble for the 6 when we pulled away. Here's what happened. Arthur behind the wheel in this orange Porsche. What happened here? Maybe just got the braking a bit wrong. Dove in there pretty hard, and maybe it's on throttle right there. Yeah, you see the brake lights come on, shifted the weight forward and then into the wall. That's easy to do, and especially in a Porsche where you're relying on all that rear weight. The second you kind of stand the thing up on its nose, leaving a corner, it's not going to want to cooperate with you and slide back into line. So it just stepped away on Arthur there and paid the price. That will shift the closest battle now between these two. Byron Hayes in the 3, one of our at-home participants, and the 7 of Ramiro Trejo in the Ferrari. His day did not start the way that he planned, with crash in turn number 1. Fell back to dead last and now is on the middle of a recovery trying to run down this 3. And the big advantage for those that are at home is that they're familiar with their equipment, and most of them are probably also not on motion rigs, which tends to make you a little bit more distracted in some instances by some of the motions and things. So it can be almost robotic to climb behind the wheel of a non-motion rig. And in a way, there can be an advantage there, but more of the circumstances that you're familiar with your equipment, you're familiar with the rig, and all these drivers here had time to acclimate. They would be just as fast, but it's all about being comfortable behind the wheel, whether in a real car or a sim car. The leader's out of control at turn 10 and into the wall. And that will change the lead over to sim number 3. That's Eric Pilipczyk behind the wheel. He will take the lead away as Robbins just got it all wrong. Here's a look at it. Just got wide up onto the rumble strips, and not a lot of grip on those versus the pavement right there. It was already sideways before he got to them, but wasn't able to catch it as the car went up onto the rumble. So that was a big mistake that's going to cost him 6 spots. He falls back now to 7th place. And it will shift the lead to the number 3 car. Down into the final 10 minutes of this race. 8 minutes and 35 seconds remain. And the battle is for second. There's 3 cars on top of each other now. One of them is Thomas Martinez, and he is feeling the pressure from behind. It's the 9. Elvis behind him, who's going to have a run here looking into turn 6. Side by side, thinks better of it, but it's the 10 that dives too deep. Can he keep it on course? He does, but the 9 crosses over, and watching from behind is Christian, who's got the best perspective of all of it. Mercedes, Porsche. Big stabs at the brake pedal there to avoid a potential collision. And this is for a podium spot. The 10, the 9, and the 4. Leaving turn 8. And are they losing ground? They lost 0.3 of a second collectively to the race leader last time around. The 10 sideways, and wow, what a move by the number 9. Elvis takes that with conviction. So does the 4. 2 spots gone with just a momentary slip of the tires for car number 10, Thomas Martinez. And now, battle for second resumes. Now the battle for third resumes. Through comes Thomas Martinez, crosses him back over, back under again. This is a great battle for position here, all for podium spots. Oh, and a slide. The 10's out of control and gets it back underway, but loses a spot in the process. Now we climb the hill towards the inner loop again, and the leader has a 4.5 second advantage. 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go. And now the battle shifts to 4th place. Martinez on the hot seat again. The 5, Patrick Kowalski hounding him, and then bring in the 6 of Arthur, who had that spin a couple of laps ago. He wants back into the mix as the 2 ahead of him get very close indeed through the outer loop. And that Mercedes AMG, we know it's quick. He was fast enough to run second and trying to now escape from the clutches of both Patrick Kowalski and from car number 6, Arthur Peitka. And while all this is going on, 2 other battles to focus on. One for second, that's the 9 and the 4 car, and the one for 8, the 8 and the 3 car. And it's this one that gets closer. It is the former race leader, Sam Robbins, under fire from our one driver that is joining us from home in this particular race. Byron Hayes has had an up-and-down day. Started this race in 8th, fell back as far as 10th, and now has picked up 1 spot at a 9th place. Ooh, a little wiggle there from Sam Robbins. That's what got him in trouble the first time. You see how smooth Byron is behind the wheel. He's just got to put it together to find pace over an entire race as the battle for second continues, and they've run the leader down a full second last time by. The gap is just 3.5 seconds between the top driver in sim number 3, that is Eric Pilipczyk, and then the 9 and the 4 that run second and third. Into the bus stop again. Here they go. Big lunges up onto the curbing. And chasing each other down the hill again, the outer loop. Which line do you pick? The 4 committed to throttle really early, runs the track almost to the outside wall, and late on the brakes again. He's been better on the brakes, especially into turn 6. The door's open. And here comes that battle for position number 2. Under 5 minutes remaining. Who's braver on the brakes? It is the 9. Is it too brave, though? There's the crossover. An acceleration out of the heel and headed towards the heel, rather, out of the toe. 4 minutes remain. The leader continues to lose time. He's just 3 seconds ahead. There is your race leader. It is 2.9 seconds between himself and that fierce battle for second that rages on. The embers still glowing and restoking the action we saw at the beginning of the race with 3 drivers wide into the first corner. Ooh, a little bit of contact there. Big slide from the 4. Can he save it? Not quite. And he spins around. And that battle for second will fizzle as the next one rages on through. That is Thomas Martinez, Patrick Kowalski, and Arthur Pitka that work on through. Now, there's the 4, still losing ground. The 3 of Byron Hayes right in behind him. And up the S's again. There should just be 2 laps remaining next time by. Look at the 4 way wide at the exit of turn 2. He almost ran wide. Look out. Big run here from the 3. He's in the slipstream. He's going to think better of it, and I think sit on this opportunity to pass. Bus stop, though, you have to be so precise through here. The McLaren does not like the curbs in the way that the Porsche does, and you see it there, the payoff for the Porsche. Skateboarding over the tops of the curbs like they're not even there. Now on board with Ramiro Trejo in the Ferrari 488. Again, they started with an accident at the first corner. And the leader, 2.9 seconds ahead, has just 2 minutes and 17 seconds remaining on the clock. Through turn 10, out to the rumble strips. That's where the leader lost it last. All right, this will be 2 laps to go this time. No white flag, so at least 2 more laps remaining. And there's more trouble. Big impact for the 6 car. Huge impact into the Armco at the exit of turn 10. That was ugly. Let's have a look at it. There was a pretty spicy scrap here for position. And was there some contact that led to it? No, he was loose already and just kind of lost it on his own. And then there's that impact with the wall that we saw. So that was Arthur. That will drop a little bit further towards the tail of the field. So whether or not the leader can drive away unnoticed, that is the challenge for Elvis behind the wheel of this Fred Flintstone's number 9. He better get pedaling because he's got to run down this 11, or I guess this 3 car, in just a lap and a half. All the while this battle rages on, just 2.2 seconds between them. It is a 3-horse race for third place. Ferrari versus Porsche. That was almost a contact moment there as the 7 throttles up to the inside of the Porsche to his right. And just ahead of them, it's the 10, Thomas Martinez, who has fought from the back to the front and then from the back to the front again. It's just 1.8 seconds now. The Ferrari dives on the 5, not close enough to make a pass. The leader is losing ground, though. It is just 1.8 seconds. And is that going to put some pressure on him for this final 3.5 miles? There's the gap. There's the difference. White flag is waving. 1 lap to go from Watkins Glen International. 1.6 seconds. The lead continues to drop and continues to fall. There is hope in the eyes of the second place driver. Can he run the leader down? It's 1.7 as they climb the hill. contact and crash, turn 1. Big crash. And this one is, here is a look at it here, top of the, or middle of the screen, I should say. There's a look, from a long ways back on exit there. The 10 gets turned. And drama continues here on the final lap of the race. All the while the leaders descend into the boot. It's just 1.5 seconds now. The number 9 Porsche getting larger in the rearview mirror. Half a lap remains, maybe less, a third of a lap remain, and there's still more battling going on. Byron Hayes in the home-driven number 3 McLaren, all over the back of the number 5. That's a battle for 6th, and it's just less than a second between the 2 leaders with only a handful of corners to go. 1.2 seconds is the difference. It has come down from over 5 seconds down to less than 1. 2 corners remain. And it's sim number 3 in command through the final corner. Checkered flag waves here at Watkins Glen. The B race here in the Sim Racing Chicago special event goes to the driver in sim number 3. Sim number 9 is second, and it's a long ways back to find your third place runner. That is Sam Robbins in the number 8, who led a whole bunch of laps in this race, led 5 of the eventual 12 laps. He comes home on the podium, followed by the 7 car, the 5, and then the 4. Or 4, then 5, then Byron Hayes, and then the 10 of Thomas Martinez with that crash on the final lap. Did not finish in the top 5. And he will come home in position number 8. Disappointing end to a strong start and a strong middle section for that number 10. But he will come home in 8th. And the 6th car, another driver that fought in the top 5, that's Arthur behind the wheel in the orange Porsche 911 GT3R. Did all he could do and will come home in 9th in this one. And then it's Camille, the pole sitter, 10th, and Dimitri Pisios in 11th. That is it for race number 1 here, and there were some dramas to speak of, absolutely. Even coming down all the way to the final lap of the race. And the energy in here is palpable. The tension at times, you can cut it with a knife. And I think everyone will take a moment to debrief and prepare for race number 2 coming up here in just a few minutes' time. So let's go back. I think we can go back and have a look at some of the big moments from this race. Let's go back and have a look at the very start of the race. Here is the crash at turn number 1. You see that 7 gets turned into the 4, and that was the first of a couple. A little bit later in the race, there was this accident here with the 3 of Byron Hayes. Got a little bit loose, a little bit wonky coming up the hill. Right there, gets squeezed. Gets the turning a little bit wrong and bounces off the wall once, twice, and gets it back straight. Then lap number 2, a little bit later in the lap, there was this. Dimitri Pisios charging through. Past a couple drivers that had some dramas here. Look at that lunge up the inside, and there was his slide that just didn't seem to end. Then into the outside wall went Dimitri. Lap 4, this was the big one. The driver that started on pole that led a couple of laps of this race, charging to try to run the leader down. Took one chunk of curb too much right there. It unsettled the car, and then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, into the outside wall. Lap number 10. This was some dramas here in this battle inside the top 5. 4 and the 9. Right here, watch this send there. The 4 gets sideways and almost has it saved. Has the wheels back to the left, overcorrects, and slips and slides. Then the big drama. This was coming to the white flag lap. This is the big drama here. Watch on exit. It's the 10 leading, the 5 trailing, and the 10 kind of gets the corner a little bit wrong, a little slow on exit, but then just gets drilled from behind, turns around, and they collide together in a dramatic display at the tail end of this race. All that aside, that was an action-packed race number 1. We've got another race still to come. And we're going to take a break and go to some intermission in between. And we'll be back in just a few minutes for our next race here from the Sim Racing Chicago special event. It has been fun so far, still lots of fun to go. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. Watkins Glen International has been around since the 1950s. Built in the aftermath of the street races in the town of Watkins Glen, just a few miles away, this course has become an international icon of road racing. So it's a fitting place then for a late summer sim racing showdown with cash prizes on the line put on by Sim Racing Chicago, a premier sim racing facility with a dozen motion-capable racing rigs. Some drivers, though, join us from around the country for a 20-minute race at this famous track near Seneca Lake. Let's have a look here at the track map for Watkins Glen International. 3.4 miles and 11 turns, and it all starts with a run down towards turn number 1, the 90. This turn used to be the last turn on the racetrack with the start-finish line right before the climb up the S's. It's 110 feet from the bottom of turn 2 to the top of turn 4, full throttle in a GT3 car, then down to the inner loop, the bus stop, the chicane, whatever you call it. It remains one of the biggest challenges of this 3.5-mile track. Right, left, right, over the curbing and into the outer loop, turn 5, downhill, leading you to a very sharp and deceiving downhill left at turn number 6. Pick the middle of the road for braking here. If you get too far right, you'll miss that turn in as the track falls away, and then feel the elevation change drop significantly from the turn 6 to the heel. Uphill significantly at the toe of the boot and then to the heel right here. This is an uphill corner that is probably the slowest on the racetrack. It leads you up to turn number 9. As you come over the crest of the hill, the track falls away again. The camber goes away as it rejoins the NASCAR short course. Then turn 10 and 11 are your final 2 turns here at Watkins Glen International. It's changed a lot in the last 40 or 50 years, the addition of the boot in 1971. But as far as its character, it hasn't changed much at all. It's still one of the fastest and most formidable tracks in North American road racing. We're here on location at Sim Racing Chicago. This place is amazing. If you haven't been here, you need to check it out. Algonquin, Illinois, just northwest of Chicago. And it is truly a spectacular place to go racing with your friends. We have joined a whole bunch of drivers from elsewhere in the country as we get ready to go racing here today, a 20-minute race. This is the A group, the fastest of the qualifiers today. And the drivers that have a name next to them, those are the drivers that are competing from home. And the drivers that have a number next to them, those are the ones that are here on site with us. And just a couple of our sim rigs on site here for this final race of the afternoon. So qualifying is underway right now. You see the top of the screen under the Sabelt logo. 10 minutes and 15 seconds to lay down a driver's best lap time. And this is essentially a time attack formula here. Fastest lap will put you on pole for the beginning of this race. Currently sitting on provisional pole to start the race would be Caleb Lehman, and behind the wheel the number 42 Porsche. And the Porsche 911 GT3R has been the car of choice so far today. It's Christopher Hickman in second place, though, in the brand new BMW M4 GT3. And this car notably famous in the sim racing world for sharing a steering wheel with a product that you can buy from Fanatec. So as far as sim to reality, it's going to not get much closer than this. BMW and Fanatec worked very closely together to develop that steering wheel. And you can see it just in the bottom left of the shot here for Christopher Hickman joining us virtually here. Fernando Paulino behind the wheel of the number 7. There he is in another BMW M4. And Devin Brock in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. Now, perhaps not the best knife for this gunfight here today. It is, for how it sounds, you would think that the Mercedes is a straight line missile, but in real life and in the sim, the reality is this car is much better suited to direction changed racetracks. Think Sonoma, think places like NOLA Motorsports Park, tracks that offer a lot more in the way of direction change, slowing and stopping, but they don't really perhaps do as good on the straightaways as things like the Ferrari, the BMW, the Lamborghini. That's really where the advantage of those cars will come in. And while this Mercedes, with its 6.2-liter naturally aspirated power plant, certainly sounds the part, it is not going to be the fastest in the trap speeds off into the inner loop. Sim number 1 going to be piloted by another Porsche 911 GT3R. Same with sim number 8 and sim number 10 back behind the wheel of a BMW M4. Peter Kutstra joins us in a Porsche as well. Sim 6 in a Porsche, sim 2 in a Porsche, and then Ryan O'Connor also in a Porsche. So it is a pack of Porsches again competing for qualifying time. Notably, again in qualifying, you have to stay on the black stuff for those times to count. The only place where you can run wide and not get an invalidation off track. That is this corner. This is turn number 8 down at the bottom of the screen, top of the screen, I should say. That pavement runoff is fair game to use everywhere else here. You have to keep a tire touching at least the rumble strip. That's true at turn 1. It's true in the bus stop as well. And everywhere else, if you go off, you're going to hit a wall. It's not necessarily like the NASCAR short course where you can basically run as wide as you want everywhere. You have to keep it on the road in order to get a valid lap time. And speaking of valid lap times, Ryan O'Connor just laid one down, a 1:44.125. That's going to put him second quickest. And 36 thousandths of a second behind Caleb Lehman. As a 1:44.089 is his best time. Christopher Hickman, again, we mentioned he's got some traffic to contend with here on this particular lap, but he's going to charge into the inner loop. Big wobble there on the curbs. You see the car get a bit unsettled. Accelerates off and away. A little bit wide there at the exit of 5. You have to watch that rumble strip. The camber and the runoff falls away pretty significantly. And David Minot in the number 3 has not yet, no, there he is, finally joins in a Lamborghini Huracan GT3. I love this car. It's one of my favorites here in the iRacing service. Naturally aspirated V10. Just listen to this thing as he accelerates onto the racetrack. There's a power plant with the Audi R8 GT3 that it will be discontinued for the 2024 racing year. No more Audi GT3 competition across the world. The cars that remain will be purely customer efforts. And Ryan O'Connor, top of the board with a 1:43.898, takes provisional pole by nearly 0.2 of a second. This driver is on it. He has been one of the fastest drivers all afternoon so far in the practices and the qualifyings, and he has put up a pretty stout lap time in this session as well. Caleb Lehman in the 42 still runs second. Then it's Christopher Hickman and then Fernando Paulino. Fernando goes third quickest and beats Hickman by 12 thousandths of a second that time. Uses all the road as long as he's touching rumble. That's fair game. And that was an exceptionally quick run through turn number 1. When you leave turn 1, you get back on the power and you don't lift for probably 20 to 30 seconds. I know in about a 210, 220 horsepower car, it is 30 seconds of on throttle time all the way down into the inner loop here. So you really have to carry good speed leaving turn 1. It is critically important. Dave Minot in the Lamborghini getting set up for his flying lap. Right out to the edge of the wall and past the start line to get his first of what could only be about 3 laps. Didn't leave himself a lot of time. Through turn 1 now, and again, not running too wide, critically important there. Some of the cars will actually bottom out on that rumble strip, but Dave looks pretty calm, cool, and collected up here. The walls close in. The track at its widest, 60 feet wide. At its narrowest right there, 32 feet wide. It's nearly half as narrow there than it is on the front straightaway, so you have to time everything just right. And then into this inner loop, this bus stop chicane. 4 tires over the first curb, and then 2 on all the remaining curbs. And Dave is the only driver that has not yet recorded a lap time in this session. Ryan O'Connor pulls in. Looks like he is done for the time being. And there is a little bit of green on the timing screen for Caleb Lehman. It is not a lot. He's basically dead even with his best time, and he's going to have to do better because Fernando Paulino just went second quick at a 1:44.022 and splits the difference between Lehman and O'Connor. Devin Brock, the Mercedes, holding it down in the AMG, but P5. And then the first of our Sim Racing Chicago competitors, position number 6. Best lap of a 45.139, about 61 thousandths better than driver on Sim 8 right now. Peter Kutstra got a little bit of a late entrance to the session, and he could be one to watch here. 0.3 down on his best of a 1:45.6, but let's not count it out. The Porsche is certainly quick enough to find some time. Big clobber there on the curb on the right going into the bus stop. And you have to be aggressive. Dave Minot up to 5th place. Menino, rather. Excuse me. Forgot a syllable there. And Kustra heads down to the boot, and I see some green for Christopher Hickman. He's got a long way to go. He's a 10th up as he heads down the back straightaway. And David Monona, 2/10 up on his time as well. He's entering the shot in the background following sim rig number 2. Big leap over the curbs. Nicely done. That was an excellent bus stop. It's a very rhythmic section, but if you get it the slightest bit wrong, it can go badly so quickly. But Dave hitting his marks right here. He's 6/10 up on his best time and has traffic to contend with. And we'll watch as the gap maybe will come down with potentially a distraction in the form of driver of sim number 2. And leaving turn 7 up the hill. He's got overlap now. I don't think he wants to sit behind him for too long here. Clearly quicker at the moment. And he did lose a 1/10 of a second. Gained it back, though, in the braking zone. Is it going to cost him on exit? He was going to run wide, but again, fair game here to run wide, so that won't cost him. Just under 2 minutes remaining here on the clock, so he'll get one more go at it if he'd like it. Still up 4/10 on his time. That would put him on pole. No, it would put him second or third quick, rather, if he could land this. Use all the racetrack on the exit and across the start-finish line. David Monona, let's see what he can do. It is a 44.052, good enough for third place. Strong lap there by David Monona, and that will leave just a handful of drivers on course. Ryan O'Connor flirting with purple right now. Yes, he's up 2/10 as he leaves the bus stop. Really strong-looking lap here. But this is the trickier section. This boot section added in 1971 to extend the course. Was then used by Formula One for a handful of years in a couple different configurations. There was actually a chicane installed on the uphill S's at turn 3, which is the left-hander, to slow cars down after a handful of really gnarly incidents at the top of the hill. And so that chicane was installed in the mid-1970s and then was removed after Formula One's departure from Watkins Glen before 1980. Really wide there is O'Connor. He's still up 2/10 and just trying to pad his advantage right now. Right out to the edge of the road. 25 seconds left on the clock. He might even get one more lap if he wants it. Good clean run, and then through the final corner, right out to the edge of the wall again. There he is, using all the road. 10 seconds left. He will get one more lap should he want it, but he did not go faster, and by the slimmest of margins. He just ran a 1:43.899. His best lap prior, a 1:43.898. That was about as close as it's going to get. Incredible consistency for Ryan O'Connor as the checkered flag flies. And Dave Monona did not go faster that time through. Fernando Paulino is on a better lap at the moment, but he would need nearly a 1/10 and a half to go to the top of the board over Ryan O'Connor. Into the toe of the boot in the BMW. This is, again, one of the newer cars at GT3 competition. Not a small car. BMW has never, well, I guess since the Z4, has only really entered large cars for competition. Think back to the M6 GT3, the M8 GT Endurance car, and now the M4 for the GT3 class. But long wheelbases and heavy weight has kind of been the story with these BMWs, but what they have in weight, they make up for in power. Fernando Paulino still up 3/10. If he is up actually 3/10, this could be a pole run. Oh, he's in the wall, final corner. Bounces off the wall and throws it away, and had a shot to run for pole, isn't able to get there. Other drivers on green laps, well, everyone else is done. Here's the driver sim number 10, up a couple of tenths. Final corner here. This will be coming to the checkers for this BMW. And needs to beat a 1:45.2 to go quicker, and he will not. The qualifying is complete here from the Sim Racing Chicago special event. Here's a quick look here at the qualifying results. Well, at least without the names. Let's go back to the ticker on the left-hand side. O'Connor, Paulino, Monona, Lehman, Hickman, your top 5. Then it's Brock, followed by the drivers on Sim 1, 8, and 10, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Then it's Peter Kutstra in 10th place, and Sims 6 and 2 that round out the rest of your qualifying order. Mentioned earlier, Watkins Glen International, just a couple of miles away from Seneca Lake, one of the Finger Lakes in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, one of the deepest of the Finger Lakes, and it is glacier carved. This whole area is absolutely gorgeous. If you've never been, you should make a point to go, just like you should make a point to go to Sim Racing Chicago. There's another look at the facility. Gorgeous, lit up in LEDs, and there you go. Everyone's having a good time here this afternoon. It's a gorgeous Sunday, and we're spending it sim racing as we get set for today's race. This is the final race of the day. This is going to be a 20-minute adventure. And it was drama all the way down to the last lap in the previous race. And there is your starting lineup getting set to go. The trouble spot last time was turn 1. We saw dramas heading down into the first corner. We saw 3 wide, we saw 4 wide, and then they were 2 wide as 2 of those drivers speared off into the runoff area, of which there is ample space at the exit of the first corner. Then it's the run up to turn 2, up the S's to the top of the hill, into the bus stop, where you have to take advantage of those rumble strips to make speed. All but Peter Kutstra has joined the grid now, and that means that we are just under a minute away from doing our 1 required pace lap before we turn them loose. And Watkins Glen International, well, the town of Watkins Glen, population 1,800. When NASCAR's here, that skyrockets to over 100,000. This track was built as configured back in 1958. Of course, it's changed a handful of times. The current configuration, 3.4 miles, about 5.5 kilometers, and 11 turns. Depends on how you count them, but 11 is the number we all stick with. And 32 feet between the Armco, right about there, from wall to wall, at its narrowest point. So we are at Sim Racing Chicago. Again, this is a really neat event. They've done these a couple of times. Was happy to be here earlier in the year when we ran one at Road America, the National Park of Speed. Got a chance to visit Road America a couple of weeks ago with Grid Life in conjunction with the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Had a blast and was reminded of how awesome that racetrack is, but so is this one. And we're pacing for 1 lap around Watkins Glen. Get those tires and brakes up to temperature. You're going to need them in 1 lap's time. Thanks for joining me here again. I'm Kyle Heyer from Grid Life and from BT World Challenge America. Pleasure to be with you here on the Sunday afternoon. A little matinee racing action going on here. Most of the drivers in this field are competing from their home rigs. Our little housekeeping items behind the scenes here as we get ready to go racing in just a moment's time. Thanks for joining us here at Sim Racing Chicago. Once again, I'm Kyle Heyer, joining you on location from this amazing facility. And you can see the drivers in their chairs, in their seats. There's a look at the purple lit LEDs illuminating the drivers that are about to go to work here. And there is bragging rights on the line, but there is also cash prizes on the line, and everybody wants to win those. It got messy at the tail end of the last one. Drivers leaning on each other. The room exploded with energy on the tail end of the previous race. And while some of the drivers in this race are not competing here physically, we can imagine the same will happen at their homes. Starting lineup for this race on the first row, it is going to be the number 95 of Oh boy, that was not what I wanted to do. So that is very loud music, so apologies for that. But let's try that again. But on the front row, it's going to be the number 95 of Ryan O'Connor. He will start alongside Fernando Paulino on the outside of that front row. Then it's going to be Dave Monona in the second row, Caleb Lehman in row number 2. Then it's Christopher Hickman in the number 11. He starts in 5th, and Devin Brock starts 6th in the number 12. Then it's Sim number 1, driven by Anthony Stella, starting in 7th. Sim 8 is Stuart Nelson, starting in 8th. In position number 9, we've got our Sim number 10, Peter Kutstra, starts in 10th place. Then Sim 6 is Michael Molesky in the number 6 machine, followed by BJ Alvarez in the number 2. That is your starting lineup here from the Sim Racing Chicago special event from Watkins Glen, New York, and from here in Illinois. Thanks so much for joining us. It's time to go racing from Watkins Glen. The field gets stacked up, and they're ready to go for 20 minutes. GT3 machines letting loose in the virtual hills of Watkins Glen. Green flag flies, and we're racing already. And it's a frantic start, and look at this. 3 wide on the run down to turn 1. Can they keep it all straight this time? Oh, that's very tight indeed. So far, so good. Well done, everybody. Clean turn 1, despite the frantic action on the run down there, and it is still tight on the run up the S's. You can't go through here side by side, but they're going to try it. Big slide from Stuart Nelson. He gathers it back up, though, as we head side by side down the back straightaway for the top spot. It is over, but for 3rd place on back, it is frantic. Oh, one car misses the bus stop. It's Caleb Lehman. He had to miss the bus stop. He will have to give up some time. Was it Lehman or was it? Yes, it was Lehman in the 42. So he will have to give some time back. All the while, Ryan O'Connor has the top spot. He has the advantage, but it's Monona 2nd, Fernando Paulino in 3rd. Then it's Hickman, Brock, Lehman, Kutstra, and Stuart Nelson. Ooh, a little bit of a check up there in the background. The 6, Michael has to bail out, and the 2, BJ Alvarez, watching all of it from the tail of the field. Now up the back straightaway towards the heel of the boot, little side by side. Lehman still trying to give some of that time back from that cut in the bus stop. The 6 is really late on the brakes. There's contact with the 10. They're going to get crossed up at the exit of turn 8, but they get it reconfigured for straight line movement. And now the 2. He'll watches on. A little bit of sim on sim battles here. A little contact with the 1. That's Anthony Stella, and the 8 of Stuart Nelson. They've gotten it sorted, but lap 1 goes to Ryan O'Connor. He is the leader on the first of what will be about a 12-lap race. Battle we're watching, though, is, I think, going to be this one. Run down to turn 1. It is, of course, Anthony Stella behind the wheel. That's that red and blue Porsche chasing the 8. Stuart Nelson now to climb up the hill. And just ahead of them, that battle for 3rd place is heating up. Fernando Paulino, Christopher Hickman, and so is this one. Kutstra and Lehman. Lehman on a recovery after missing the bus stop on the opening lap. Stays in behind the 79. Big lunge over the curbing. And a lunge up the inside at turn 5. Caught Kutstra sleeping, and they're going to run door to door through the outer loop. Nice racing room given there, and the 79 chops the nose on the run down of the turn 6. Lehman slides, crosses over, couldn't keep it there, and he straightens it back out, but the 2 drivers that just went by, the 1 and the 10 and the 8, as Lehman loses it again. And 2 times in 1 lap, he's gone out of control. But I think if we go back and look at it, it was a little bit more to it than that. I think he just kind of got pinched and ran out of room and kind of bailed onto the grass versus take out his competitor. So I'm sure he'll remember that, put one in the memory bank. And racing, and especially the relationships you build in racing, they are all a bank, deposits and withdrawals. And that was a deposit for Caleb Lehman, and he might make a withdrawal a little bit later today. Into turn 11, lap 2. O'Connor leads by 1.5 seconds, but it's all about lap time now. Who's going to be able to run him down? O'Connor just ran a 43.8, 0.3 quicker than the next quickest driver, so he continues to pad that lead. Everyone keeping it on the black stuff this time, and a much cleaner initial start to this race than the last one. We got through turn 1 3 wide. Everyone still pointed the same direction. Here's your race leader, 1.3 second advantage. Look at that thing take flight through the bus stop. That was wild. And have a look at this on the run here down into the bus stop. Watch this car again as we go back to the replay here. Watch this thing take flight. Turns in, leaps over the curbs. That's 4 tires airborne there for the race leader, the 95 of Ryan O'Connor. Certainly not holding anything back at the moment. David Monona, Fernando Paulino, Hickman, 2, 3, 4, all pretty tightly combined. And then you have to jump back. Oh, there's trouble for BJ Alvarez down at turn 6. And that is a pretty big hit there for BJ. And here's how it happened. Again, I say turn 6 is such a deceptive corner. Just carries a little too much speed there and just gets onto the inside grass and then right into the outside wall. And if nothing else, it's going to cost him time. And back to our scheduled battle between the 8 and the 1. That is Stuart Nelson and Anthony Stella. Once again, Anthony trying to move his way by and could not do it. This battle has been raging since the drop of the green flag. 14 minutes to go. And while this fight has fizzled for just a moment, this is the one that's heating up right now. Paulino and Hickman, are they going to do side-by-side up through the S's? Yes, they will. 2 BMWs side by each. Tight quarters racing here. Oh, look out. That was really dicey stuff for Hickman in the 11. They are coming together, banging doors down the back straightaway. You can get away with it once. You can get away with it twice. Can you get away with it thrice? Into the bus stop. And trouble. There's a crash behind him. And it's 3 cars. Lehman, Nelson, and Stella all involved. And a fourth car's in it. It's the 6, and he's going to pull out in front of the 2 who just misses him. That was dicey. Let's have a look at how that all popped off. And here, Stella gets into the back of the 8 there, turns him around. And then as they were bouncing through, here comes the 6 and the 42 of Lehman, and just nowhere for them to go. And that was a messy one. And that will split up some of the tail of the field. Look at this, though. Devin Brock gets shouldered onto the grass heading down into turn 8. And he's going to tag Paulino. Big dramas here between these two. The elbows are out and everybody's getting ribbed. Side by side down the back straightaway. And Paulino hangs on to 4th. All the while, Dave Monona has tried to keep pace with the overall race leader of Ryan O'Connor, and he has done so. Last time around, he was a 10th quicker than the race leader. This time through, a 10th quicker again, and he's got that lead down to just 1.2 seconds. It's far from over here at the front of the field. There's Hickman, 3rd. Paulino, Brock, Kutstra. And the only driver out right now is the 8 of Stuart Nelson. That car is retired back to the pit lane and sitting trackside. So Devin Brock got kind of shouldered by Paulino onto the grass on the back straightaway, and I wonder how much that's going to fire him up. I said earlier, deposits and withdrawals. Ooh, a little messy through the bus stop there, kind of got offline. You see the hands working hard on the left. Keep the car under control. Devin Brock maybe remembering how much physicality he had the last time around and aiming to go a little quicker than Paulino. Last time by, he was 0.8 quicker than the number 7 BMW ahead of him. Been a good lap for O'Connor, the leader so far. He's put some more distance on Monona, who was tracking him down. It is now 1.5 seconds. It was 1.2. There's the differential. Monona's got really nice, clean lines running. Looks very put together, but just the pace on this particular lap, not quite as quick as O'Connor. The slightest little lift there just to get the nose pointed in, uses the rumble strip. And turn 11, this is a deceiving corner as well. Right out to the wall using all the road. 2.5 is the differential between the two race leaders. So the top running driver here on site is that in sim number 10. Ooh, Did the commentator curse on him there? Following that, it's Anthony Stella, who was involved in that crash a couple of laps ago at the top of the hill. That's 8th for Stella. Then it's Caleb Lehman, and he's got to be kicking himself. All of this started with an accident that he kind of caused on his. It wasn't so much an accident, but he missed the bus stop on the first lap, and it put him back in traffic, and that's what got him in trouble the next time around, climbing up the S's to get involved in the crash that happened there. So he's fallen back. One of his own doing, one of not his own doing, but certainly has the pace for better. And only has about 10.5 minutes left to do it. Here's O'Connor leading the way, 1.5 seconds over Monona, Christopher Hickman, Paulino, and Devin Brock. And we are on site here at Sim Racing Chicago, a state-of-the-art sim racing facility with a dozen sim rigs with motion control on them and extremely high-end PCs and really high-end sim racing gear as well. There's literally a drone flying above my head right now. This place is so big and so cool. That's such a neat thing. I mean, they really have done an amazing job setting this facility up for success in events like this. Let's see if I can get that drone on camera. There it is, top right of the screen. If you got a space, you might as well use it, and we got high ceilings here, capturing aerial views not only in the sim, but also in the building. So laps are winding down halfway through the second and final race. This is the A race, the fastest of the fast. And Ryan O'Connor leads the way. It is 1.4 seconds still. Monona a 10th quicker, nibbling on the advantage that O'Connor has, but it hasn't been consistent or enough to track him all the way back down yet. Let's ride on board and listen. Pushing and trying to find any time he can. 1.2 seconds. He's finding some time as Monona try to run down that race leader. But Ryan O'Connor, it's one thing to catch a driver. It's a whole other concept to get past them. Once you get there, you have to out-racecraft him. And it's different to run qualifying laps behind a driver and a whole other thing to put your car offline and still have enough speed to overcome that race leader. So O'Connor has had the advantage. So far, he has led every lap of this race. And is there anybody here in Sim Racing Chicago that has anything for the top 5? It has been a fierce fight for Anthony Stella and Stuart Nelson, who got involved in that collision and through it. Also was Michael in the number 6 in the orange Porsche, who also got himself tangled in that. BJ Alvarez, he's just had another incident, and let's have a look at that down at the toe of the boot. Big elevation change here, and with that comes a bunch of weight transfer. Had the car toss in a little bit fast, and all that weight in the rear end just kind of swung around like a pendulum, and around he went. Still hangs on to 10th for now. Third place getting a little closer. Hickman and Paulino, they went door to door up the S's a couple of laps ago. It was Hickman that held off Paulino for the fight. There's that differential. 0.8 of a second, and it's only 0.7 between Anthony Stella and Caleb Lehman, who's on his own recovery drive after a number of smaller incidents earlier in this race. Here's on board with the Porsche. Well done. Well, good line through there. This is the 992 generation Porsche GT3R, and with it comes a bunch of electronics changes, aerodynamic adjustments, and it is a much better car than the previous generation car was, which is concerning for all the other manufacturers because the previous Porsche was already one of the winningest cars in GT3 competition, so only setting themselves up for a good future if they didn't have one already. Other new cars, again, we mentioned the BMWs. These are relatively new to GT3 competition as of last year. And the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. This car is also fairly new. Changes to the front fascia and electronics. Devin Brock, the only driver piloting the Mercedes at the moment. Really tight to the wall at the exit at turn 11. That was almost a crash. And here we go, back to a regularly scheduled battle with Anthony Stella, getting his money's worth today, battling everybody here at the Sim Racing Chicago venue and online with Caleb Lehman. It continues to lap just a little bit quicker than Stella, so we are due for a fight. Ooh, a little off apex there for Stella. He's going to run wide. Lehman carries really nice speed, and we'll have the slipstream following in the draft up the hill. This is a pretty critical area to find speed, because if you can get alongside a driver by the bus stop, you will basically outduel them and dare them to drive deeper into the inner loop. Here comes Lehman with a run. Is he going to look left? Yes, he will. Side-by-side battle here into the bus stop. Who's going to win it? Stella hangs on. But how much longer can he cling to it? 8th place, still under fire, and 3rd place getting closer every lap. And let's not count out the leaders. It's 1.1 seconds between O'Connor and Monona. And Monona is in drafting distance now, 1 second back. It's not incredibly strong that far back, but he's in the mirrors close enough to be a factor in the final 3 laps of this race when we come back around. This is the fight we're anticipating the closest, though. Lehman and Stella for 8th. Late on the brakes. Didn't quite get down to the apex there, and while Stella was a bit more conservative, he was able to get back on throttle that much sooner and top down as they rejoin the short course here used by NASCAR. Camber falls away, and the car will kind of wash out. Too much throttle, too much steering, you're going to be spun around and in the wall here. Here's a run from Lehman up the inside at turn 11. He dives, they collect each other, and the one's going to shoot off and slam the wall. So does Lehman. That was an optimistic dive, but they will both continue, this time positions traded. Have a look at it again. Got in there. I don't know if he had overlap or even wanted it really, but by the time they turned in, they were colliding. They will continue to fight for 8th place. Looks like Lehman's actually given the spot back potentially. Drop back into 9th has the 42. So that leaves us battle for the lead and the battle for 3rd as your closest fights with 3 laps to go. Next time by will be 2 laps to go. Ryan O'Connor has the advantage. It's just 1 second clear of Monona, who has been just thrashing this Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo. He is close, but no cigar just yet. 0.8 of a second. You see that differential on the timing and scoring on the left-hand side of the screen. And where is the Lamborghini better? Well, maybe nowhere than the Porsche. The Porsche is such an all-around good car. I think the only place that the Lamborghini might have an advantage is maybe at the end of the straightaway, as the 2 has gone around for a loop. That is BJ Alvarez. Spun in the inner loop. 0.8 and shrinking, though, is that differential. They head into the 90. And O'Connor now has to contend with the mental aspect of having that Lamborghini grow larger in the rearview mirror. 0.7 of a second. It is closer than it has been since the drop of the green flag into the bus stop. Half a second. Monona is there. He is so close. Trying to run down O'Connor, who has led essentially every lap of this race. And the 3 started in 3rd on the inside of that 2nd row. Had to contend with a couple of the BMWs on the initial start, but now he's launching his attack, his assault on the 95, and he has just a lap and a half left to do it. Turns in late, throttles down to try to build the momentum, leaving the heel, or the toe of the boot heading to the heel. It's 0.6 now. Any mistake by O'Connor opens up the opportunity to be passed. No mistakes at turn 8, though, if just a bit conservative. The 3 runs wider. Two corners left, And then we're coming to the white flag that signifies the final lap of this race. There is your lead battle. Just 4 car lengths apart. Leaving the final corner. Oh, Minona's in the wall, but he keeps it straight. 1 lap to go from Watkins Glen. The battle is on. I just don't know if he's got enough. He used up a lot of his luck there, I think, in that last corner. Up the S's for the final time. Ryan O'Connor started this race on pole and just kept it all in the rearview mirror, including Dave Minona, who has been absolutely flying right now. Half a second into the inner loop. You see how aggressive he has to be on the curbing to close in. It is working, but he's just running out of time. He's running out of laps. Passing opportunities dwindling here. The boot is such a tricky section to overtake in. All the while, Kutstra and Sim 10, they're locked in a fight for 6th place. We'll check in on that one just briefly. There's that, the 6th place car and the 7th place car. Ooh, the 10's really wide at the exit of 5. But half a second remain between Ryan O'Connor and David Minona. Checkered flag is waving in the distance. There are 2 corners left for the 3 and for the 95. Ryan O'Connor has dealt with everything in the rearview mirror that he could. 0.3 of a second, 0.2 of a second. Dave is close, he's there. Final corner with cash on the line, throws it in, can't make it. The 95 will hang on in the last turn. Ryan O'Connor wins at Watkins Glen. The 3, valiant effort, couldn't do it. Christopher Hickman, 3rd place. Fernando Paulino, 4th. Devin Brock will be 5th. And then we go back to this battle for 6th place. Peter Kutstra and Sim 10. One last lunge, throws it into the wall, but can't get there. And then in 8th place, final corner for Anthony Stella, who had the pace to run up front, but didn't have the luck to do it. Got involved in a collision in the S's. He's 8th place. Caleb Lehman in the 42 comes home in 9th. And the last running driver in position number 10 is Michael in the number 6. But congratulations to Ryan O'Connor, Dave Menino, and Christopher Hickman, who came home on podium in a pretty fierce fight in both races today. Pretty thrilling all the way down to the wire. Drivers at home, drivers here on site at Sim Racing Chicago. Sights and sounds again from this facility. It is a state-of-the-art place and a state-of-the-art race. Checkered flag for the last running driver, and your running order one final time. Ryan O'Connor in the number 95, Dave Menino in the number 3, then it's Christopher Hickman, Fernando Paulino, Devin Brock, then it's Kutstra. Sim 10, Sim 1, which was driven by Anthony Stella, Caleb Lehman, Sim 6th with Michael behind the wheel, Sim 2 with BJ Alvarez, and Sim 8 with Stuart Nelson. Big dramas and a lot of fun here at Sim Racing Chicago. It has been a blast. As one more time we take a look here at the facility and enjoy the camaraderie here. Everyone sitting next to us. I've got Camille with me. Camille, before we sign off, anything you want to say here on the broadcast?
Thank you, everybody, for coming out to Sim Racing Chicago. It was a great race. Obviously, some guys got wiped out, but that just happens in racing sometimes. Sometimes you overdrive the car, and we saw a lot of that happening today. We did a lot of practice with some of the guys in studio. These motion rigs obviously are a little hard to drive sometimes, especially for guys that don't own rigs at home themselves. But congratulations to all the winners. Thank you very much for participating. We'll be throwing these events now more often than we were before, maybe even monthly. So please sign up and we'll let you know what's going on in the future. Thank you again for coming.
All right, and thank you again, Camille, for putting on this and being here and supporting the sim racing community, both in person and on the sim at home. Thanks again for joining us here today. It was a pleasure to be here. Again, one final look at Sim Racing Chicago. If you want to check it out, make sure you find us on Facebook and join the next competition here from Sim Racing Chicago. I'm Kyle Heyer. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for participating, and congratulations to the winners. We'll be contacted about your prizing. We'll see you next time here from Sim Racing Chicago in Algonquin, Illinois.